Welcome to Grief Uprooted, a podcast dedicated to sharing your grief stories. Together, we embark on the mystery of one's grief journey as they learn to live, heal, and be courageous in a world rooted in trauma. Join myself, Christine, in an open discussion to help you uproot the grief in all our lives. I am an award winning author, professional speaker, and humanitarian in the field of grief and trauma. I want you to be part of the discussion. Welcome back to Grief Uprooted. I'm Christine Nederland and your host. I just need to say thank you to a few people on my Facebook who have reached out to suggest today's topic. I think it's a great one. But before I get there, just want to say thank you for your support. The YouTube channel is doing fabulous. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all those social media platforms. I love seeing you engage with me. I love your comments. And yeah, click that like button on Spotify and things like that so we can grow the community. However, you're listening to this podcast, could be your YouTube channel. You could be right on our website at griefuprooted.com. However, it may be. I just want you to know that I so appreciate you. And today's episode is for you. So, what do you want to hear? The strange, weird, interesting, and downright hilarious behaviors we take on while we're grieving. Yep, you heard it right. So let's start. Let's start looking at some of the behaviors that we do while we're grieving and really looking at, do they have a purpose? Do they really have a purpose? You might be surprised. Come on, let's go. The lighter side of grief. The things nobody tells you that you're going to start doing. So we're going to start off with this. First off, a lot of times when we're grieving, it becomes very somber. And you've all seen those movies where people are all together and they start sobbing, they start crying. But halfway through the movie, while they're crying, somebody says something that's funny. Somebody did something that's funny, and everybody starts to laugh. And you see that laughter. And all of a sudden, after the tears, the laughter, you see a connection. Why is that? Why do we depict that in our movies so very often? Why does laughter seem to follow that? And they're followed up by that human experience of connection. Another question to ask yourself is, how come after somebody dies, you could be sitting down watching TV and a commercial comes on for cereal, and all of a sudden you find yourself connecting with that commercial. You find yourself sobbing for the person eating cereal in the commercial because possibly they're eating it alone without their loved one. How come all of a sudden, as you walk around, when you see numbers flashing up or you see a specific color or you even read your horoscope, you find a whole new meaning in this? You find purpose in stuff. You start searching for the purpose. You start looking for the meaning of things. Another is, I remember once this lady shared with me that her husband was dealing with his grief. So he went outside to chop trees down and pile the wood. And he would do this day after day after day. And she's like, I have enough firewood to last me decades, but we have no trees left in our yard. I remember one time grieving my mother-in-law, and that Christmas, everybody got scarves. And they were like, these are beautiful. And I was like, that was my grief. I just sat and knit and knit and knit and made all these scarves for people. Why, when we're grieving, all of a sudden our behaviors slightly change? We start doing things we would never do. I would never knit. I never even learned to knit. And all of a sudden, I learned, picked it up, and made everyone a scarf. What are we doing? What is the purpose of what we're doing? I will tell you, it is grieving. Often when we're grieving, people are talking about the stages of grief. We've all heard them. And you're going to go through these 5 stages and you're going to hit denial. You're going to hit acceptance. You're going to hit this. You're going to hit that. But no one talks about these odd behaviors. All of a sudden, I want to have a shrine in my living room, a room that I would never allow anyone to light a candle. And so many people are starting to light a lot of candles in memory of their loved ones. We start doing things that are quite the opposite of what we used to do. This is an awakening in you. I often call it like our inner spirit, our mind, our body, everything awakens for something we experienced impacted us so deeply. That sorrow hit so far down that it changes the directory of your life. It changes who you are. And I think this is part of grief that so many people don't really grasp or understand. They think you're going to cry for a period of time, you're going to go through these stages and you're fine. Or you're going to just become resilient and get back out there. It doesn't work that way with grief. We become resilient, but it's integrated into who we are. So, yeah, you might wake up every day. And from the moment that you lost your loved one to this day, your routine may be different. It may be completely different. Do you know how many of my clients, after losing loved ones, say, I'm going to say, I love you to every person that leaves me when they go to just go to work or they go to go off on a trip, anything like that. My children, I'm from now on going to consistently say, I love you when they leave me. And why all of a sudden is that behavior changing? And such a huge behavior from going from somebody who may not express their love to their family members to all of a sudden, every time somebody leaves and they love them, they're going to say, I love you. I have seen this so many times happen through the generations, which I think is funny because in the older generations, I love you did not come out of their mouths as freely as it does now in this present generation. At least I hope. And in this present generation, I know I say I love you to my children daily and every time we say goodbye. And I want that to be part of my life because I want them to know that. But when we say it to older people, they tend to hesitate and go, What? What are you saying to me? And it's like, I love you. And they will be taken aback. But you know what? They'll start to say it to you. They'll start to realize how great that feels inside. Because that is something I started to do after I lost my brother. I started to realize I didn't want anyone to walk out the door anymore, not knowing that I love them. I want them to know that. And is that uncomfortable? I'm going to tell you right now, there were some people in my life who were like, What? What did you just say? You love me? Yes, I love you. I care for you. So these behaviors come and, some of them, they may not seem 100% okay to you. And I'm here to tell you that majority of them are okay. Seeing signs or I'm not going to try to say that word, hyper vigilant. There we go. I think I got it right. Into things where you're really looking into things and paying attention and going, what does that mean? Like, why do I see that bird all of a sudden? And I keep finding dimes, or I think that every time I see that star, it reminds me of my loved one. These these behaviors and these awakenings are part of the grieving process. These are to bring you comfort, but also to show you a different perspective of the world. You are seeing things differently. You have experienced a human condition, which is human sorrow, deep, deep sorrow and pain. This will change you. This will drastically change you. A lot of the people I've had on the podcast, they often have shared stories of how their grief has changed their lives in 100-degree. Like they have just totally turned around. Some people have actually come from a world of addictions. Their grief had caused them to really fall into that deep sorrow, and they found themselves dealing with an addiction. And then they were slowly to bring themselves out of that with the help of others, the help of us together. They were able to heal that grief and now run nonprofit agencies. I've seen others who have worked in the sports industry to all of a sudden writing books on grief and helping youth through their grief. You know, grief comes in so many different forms. I know here on Grief Uprooted, we talk a lot about death, but when we're experiencing a divorce, when we're experiencing the loss of friendships, difficult relationships in our lives, all of this comes into play. And we know that there's these strange behaviors we start doing. Some of them, you know, may be a little odd, but others all serve that purpose. I had a young girl I worked with in a school program, and she consistently screamed. Like it was like when she talked, her octone went up. Like it was always, "Bye, Chrissy." And she would yell out the window when I left the school. And we had sat down and talked to her. We had hearing tests done. And it wasn't until one day she looked at me and she said, "I don't want anyone not to hear me." And I said, "Why?" And when she looked at me and said, "My mom died and she couldn't hear me, and she fell into a coma, and I had talked so loud, and I was so hoping she heard me and she could come back, but she didn't hear me." And this little one had demised in her mind that I need to be loud so people hear me, so they know that I'm there and I'm there for them. Once we talked this through and we understood where this behavior came from, it was okay that she wanted to be loud. It really was. But we wanted to make sure she was okay. And after we talked about it, and after we learned different ways of communicating, writing a letter, then she was able to kind of let go of screaming at people. But that behavior came out of her grief. And it was one that maybe we thought was troublesome, but it was solvable. And it was also meaningful. It had a purpose. It had a purpose for her. Robertspress.com is up and running. We are carrying over 500 different grief resources. I wanted to take a moment and share with you some of those resources. The first one is When Death Walks In. This is actually quite a thin book, but a great read for the teenager in your life. Very simple, kind of goes through some different aspects of grief and how to express that grief via art, poetry. It really is a good read for a teenager. My best suggestion with this, just stick it next to the toilet or throw it on the dinner table and just walk away. A lot of times they'll pick it up. One that is written also in companion to that, I love to use, is Fire in My Heart, Ice in My Veins. This is actually a journal. So it's asking questions, open-ended questions, and they can complete it by drawing and expressing themselves right here in this journal. So it kind of preempts them to talk. Two great teen books that I have. Another author that I'm really interested in is Margaret Heegard. Margaret Heegard has perfected the drawing out feeling books. This one's When Mom and Dad Separate. In that, you'll see that she has a lot of activities and things for young children to do. In the drawing out series, she also has When Someone Has a Very Serious Illness. Another one is When a Family is in Trouble with Addictions or Drug Use or Alcoholism. Her books are amazing. You can get all of these on robertspress.com. Margaret Hedard has a huge array of draw out the feeling books. So they're all there on the website. Another one I absolutely love is The Forever Dog. Talks about pet loss and how we move forward and cherish our pets. Got some amazing illustrations in this book. Another one that is great for, I would say, your 12-year-old, like your preteen, is Helping for the Hard Times. This book is full of different activities that you can do with the children, often used in school settings or youth groups. Has a lot of great ideas, and it actually tells you how to do the activities. So it's another great resource to have on hand, even for your staff if you're running a youth program. Another one that I love is What Happens When a Loved One Dies. And this really is introducing the concept of death. This is a great read for that younger age range when we're looking at grade 1 or 2. It's really working on the metaphor of the butterfly, the water bugs to dragonflies, caterpillar to butterfly, really talking about how grief is seen in all around us in our environment. So, a really good start to introducing grief. The last one I'm going to talk about is The Next Place. And this actually has been read, I think, at so many different life celebrations or funerals. It's a few words on each page, but the meaning behind it is very, very poetic. Hits the heart quite a bit. Beautifully illustrated also inside. So all these resources can be found on robertspress.com. I know we have some specials up there right now. We've also opened up to having journals, some ceramic items, so gift items too, because I know the holidays are coming up. So we're getting ready for that too. So I just wanted to show you those and give you an idea. Do visit robertspress.com, and let's get back to the episode. Take care. And so many times in our grief, we start to take on these behaviors. How many of you make your children text you when they get to a party and when they leave a party, when they get to school and when they're coming home? We all start these behaviors after we've learned that really people can die in an instant, that things can happen in an instant. And these aren't behaviors to look at. And I know that a lot of you are saying, yeah, people tell me all the time, like, you're paranoid, you worry too much, you do this, you do that. I think when you're putting some healthy habits into place, my children, when they live under my roof, I ask them, please text me when you get to school. Please text me when you get home. Please let me know you're okay. And I offer that same respect to the people I love. There's nothing wrong with that. One of the things about these behaviors that you really sometimes have to take a step back and laugh. And that's when we start doing things that are quite humorous. You know, I remember once I was working with somebody and they sold all their furniture, all of it. And all of a sudden started painting the walls so brightly in their home. And it was a widow. And as I started to work with her, I thought, oh no, like she's really taking on a whole new life. And as I worked with her and I saw all these bright colors coming out in the walls and in her furniture, and I said, what's going on? She was able to look at me and she said, I want to celebrate this home. I want to celebrate that my husband and I raised a family in this home. And it's still alive. It's still beautiful. And now my grandchildren come. I never in a million years even computed that. Her children kept saying, what is going on? Our mother has gone crazy. And when I realized that this was her expression of the joy and love that her children and her marriage brought her, my goodness, paint away. Get a bright yellow sofa. I think it's a great idea. So these behaviors you're going to be seeing possibly in your friends also that might be grieving. How many of us have those friends who have either experienced a divorce or have experienced a change in a job or something traumatic has happened in their life? And all of a sudden, they're off touring Europe. They're off looking and finding themselves again. You see, grief is brought into our lives for a purpose and a reason. I know to some of you right now, that's bullshit. You're like, there's absolutely no purpose for this. But it is part of a human condition that we all experience. I wish it wasn't. I really do. I cannot tell you how much I wish it wasn't. I'm sure that I'm talking to the choir because it is by far the most heart-wrenching thing you will ever experience in life. And when we get to that other side of grief, we start to see these behaviors as a celebration of our loved ones. We start to see that it keeps our loved ones around. When we see the red cardinal and we say, hey, that's somebody I love. That's them saying hi. Or if we see that dime on the ground or pennies from heaven, there's so many things like that we start to recognize when we're grieving. And sometimes we downright just start laughing. We start laughing at ourselves. Like, what are we doing? How come all of a sudden now I see myself going out at night and talking to the moon? How come all of a sudden I'm in a living room and I'm talking away and nobody is there? Because you're grieving. And sometimes you just have to turn around and laugh at yourself and go, what the heck am I doing? Write your comment. What's the funniest, strangest thing that you've done in your grief? Have you decided to all of a sudden change direction? Have you decided that you need to write a book? Have you decided that it's okay to run outside in the middle of the night and look for that falling star? Is it okay to do something completely different that you've never done before? I think it is. I think it's an awakening within us. Another part of some of these crazy, funny stories that, I've seen is that sometimes in our grief, we do things such as crying over those silly commercials or you're sharing with a friend that, yeah, like now I've got this weird behavior where I'm talking to myself 24/7, or I go for a walk and I just pretend my loved one's with me now and I talk to him. I can't tell you how many people I know and how many people have disclosed to me that they talk to their dead loved ones. This is a common behavior. And sometimes they feel they're being answered. And I am not here to tell you that's not true because who are we to say? Pretty sure your loved ones are answering you. And at times, those answers are hilarious. At times, you may look out and see that red cardinal the moment you ask that question. So absorb it and take a good belly laugh at it. Be able to laugh at yourself and go, okay, now I think I'm really crazy, but heck, you know what? This makes me feel good. I'm here to tell you that grief does feel like you're crazy sometimes. And I'm also here to tell you that it's okay to feel crazy at times. It's okay to want to laugh and giggle and have a good time again. I know the holiday seasons are coming up, and a lot of times people will say, I don't want to celebrate the holidays. And if, starting next month, some of these episodes are going to be on how to make some amazing ornaments and mementos of our loved ones and how to bring them into our celebrations. But, for the meaning of this episode, it's really okay, all these quirky behaviors we have. It's okay to want to wear our loved ones' clothing. It's okay to do that. And it's okay if somebody else is scrutinizing you for that. I remember working with a family where one daughter, she constantly wore her mother's sweaters and clothing, and the other daughter absolutely thought that was awful. How you grieve and how you encompass your quirky and interesting and downright weird behaviors after you're grieving or while you're grieving, that's for you. And that's okay. And sometimes these behaviors are short lived. Sometimes we find ourselves, there's actually a great series that comes out, and it's got 4 books in it. And I know one of the titles is Permission to Grieve, Significance of Grieving. And I love that it's a 4 book series because it's like you're taking 3 months to kind of do something you would never really think you were going to do right after somebody dies. You'll see those interesting behaviors you're doing. And then after 8 months or 6 months, you start to see yourself evolving again. And then after 12 months, you're evolving again. And, after 18 months, it's like we're integrating the behaviors, we're integrating our grief into who we are. And it's okay to consistently ruminate or mull over these behaviors and our ideas and our hyper focusedness. It's okay to really look at all of this and see where it's going. And it's okay to laugh. It really is okay to laugh. So, some of the things I really want to do is be able to offer you some advice on what to do if you're like, okay, I have a child who has this behavior going forward. And that could easily be thumb sucking. A lot of kids will return to a behavior they did as a child, or a younger child. And bedwetting, as adults, we may take on different behaviors. We're nervous to walk out the door. We're scared of certain things. I know that working with a young girl whose mother died in a car accident, when it came time to get her driver's license, she didn't want to. And these anxieties or worries, maybe not everyday behaviors, but they are things that start to erupt. And they're not things that we want to laugh at. They're things that we want to help our loved ones through. So we want to kind of sit down and realize that thumb sucking and bedwetting may only last for a period of time. And how we move through that is by allowing that child to ruminate, to be able to talk and be able to express their grief. And some of the ways I love to do this is through journaling, through talking, through creating a play. This has worked so well with a lot of my youth, where I will say, write me a screenplay and I'll be a character and you be a character. And they can really come back with some great plays. Some you can ask them to act out on their own. I remember reenacting when I was a child, a play on grief. Of course, I did, right? In high school. And it was an expression of how I was internalizing my grief at that time, that we really didn't have an outlet for it. Another suggestion, when we're tackling stuff like that teenager who wants to drive, being able to really gain an understanding of how her mom died and what are the precautions she can take and how do we slowly move her into that. Being able to have that open conversation and really analyzing those fears. I often love doing the two sides. So, one side is our anxiety, our behaviors, sometimes our rational behaviors. On the other side is some solutions to that. What is our inner coach saying? If our inner critic is saying, you can drive because your mom died, what's our inner coach saying? Maybe let's research this. How did mom die? How did this happen? And what precautions can I take to instill that I'm putting my safety first? A lot of times, these weird and interesting behaviors start to come out of our grief. Some of them, you know, my children most probably don't enjoy that when I call, they need to answer the phone quite quickly because I will get this anxiety that something has happened. And they've adapted to that and they understand that's me. And as we grow older and as we experience grief more than once in our lives, because we all will, these behaviors become part of us. And that is part of the integration process. A lot of us say, well, I have to integrate the stages of grief, or I have to integrate these emotions. I'm here to tell you, you've integrated some interesting behaviors too. And some of them, maybe not so serious, but some of them might be serious. So I encourage you to really look at the behaviors you've integrated in your life since you've started this grief process. And what are some that you want to keep? And what are some of them that you may want to investigate a little bit deeper and be able to let go? But I'm here to tell you, be easy on yourself. Have some self compassion and have a good belly laugh. It's okay if you're doing something that just seems a little odd, that seems a little different. It's okay to express your grief as long as you feel good, as long as you feel safe, and know that you're part of a community here where you can talk about your grief. We can uproot it, all the crazy behaviors we have, and we can discuss it. I look forward to hearing your comments on this episode. I look forward to hearing some of your crazy behaviors that you're going to continue to do that are in memory or helping you understand your grief better. It's okay to do things in memory of our loved ones, and it's okay to talk to someone who has died in your life. And it's okay if they answer. Take care. It is only together that we grieve, and it is only together that we heal. Grief Uprooted professional grief and empowerment coaching are not to be used as a substitute for professional advice by legal, medical, financial, business, spiritual, or other qualified professionals. All our products and services are designed for grief empowerment through learning and sharing of one's lived experiences.